We are riding in a slightly different area because I got lost and now I'm trying to get home. But today's video is going to be about why going to church is important. And so many Christians say they believe in God and everything else, but they don't go to church. And I honestly was one of them for quite some time. For a very long time, in college, I would rarely go to church. There's some kids doing weed. There I was doing, see him doing his little wheelie on his mini Varg. It's kind of cool. Can't rip a wheelie into stop traffic, unfortunately, but yeah, so going to church is important. So many Christians don't really go to church, and I was one of them for a lot of time. I believed in God and I trusted in God, but I hadn't read the Bible and I didn't really seem to care what, whatever. I just lived my life on my own accord, and that wasn't good. And so I read the Bible and I started following Jesus, and I tried to live my life the right way and fully come to him. And at that point I realized, man, I probably ought to start trying to go to church. And when I started church, it's kind of uncomfortable, and I'm 26, so not a whole lot of other people my age seem like they really go to church much, and they all just, I don't know, it's unusual. Usually churches are filled with older people or people with kids and stuff like that, and it's not people my age that are there. And if you go to a church with a lot of people around my age, usually they're all massive mega churches and whatever, so it's hard to find one. And I lived out in the middle of nowhere in western Kansas for a long time, so there's not many options, and then I moved up to Minnesota and there was just not a lot around, so I tried, and after a long time I found one that was good. I started going and I miss it a lot because I'm an airline pilot, so on Sundays I work a lot, especially at my airline. They just do a lot of flying on Sundays and the weekends, so hard for me to get weekends off, but when I'm off I try to go. And you might say, oh, I can believe in God and follow Jesus, live like him every day, but I don't have to go to church. And well, yeah, I'm not gonna fully say the Bible requires you to show up to a Sunday sermon and everything else. It does require you to have a community of followers around you. How else are you gonna do that? Are you meeting up weekly with another group of Christians and learning about God, studying together, focusing, building relationships, having a reliable group of people to fall back on and everything else? It's tough. I definitely wasn't doing that without going to church. And so when I started going to church, it takes a while to build that, but it's to put you in a community of people that surrounds you, that love God, that you have a pastor now or other elders in the church or small groups now. You can talk about what's going on in your life. You can hear about things going on in other people's life. You can grow together as a Christian. One thing that is something that people don't think about, it's like if you think you're the best basketball player on the face of the earth and all you do is sit around your backyard playing basketball on your own, you can't show up to a game and do super good. You can't show up and think you're gonna be an NBA all-star when you've never played with a basketball game with anyone else, right? And I know this is a loosely related thing, point I'm trying to prove, but when you go to church, if you try to do it all on your own, all you're ever gonna have is your own thoughts to contend with. Sometimes other people say things that intrigues you, or they bring something up. I never thought about that. And yeah, you can do things online, you can watch church online, but going in person, it's good. It gets you social. How much of your week, do you spend watching TikTok and Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, television? You can't spend an hour and a half going to a local church, sitting there hearing about God. It's really not that big a deal. And I used to not like the worship music. I hated singing because I was so awkward and embarrassed and uncomfortable. And finally I got over that, and I actually made a video talking about that, how I used to not like singing and everything else, and why I now think it's important to do. And I realize I'm worshiping the living God. That's one of the ways I can really do it, is to sit there and worship God. That's what it's called, worship music. And so it's pretty neat. There's another guy on a mini bike. Everyone's out riding their little miniature motorcycles today. But I used to not like it. Now I realized it. I realize that's an important part of my week and everything else. And I don't know, it sets you up. It's a foundation, it's a backfall, you know. If you don't have a community of people around you, you don't do the small group stuff, whatever, you imagine when you start falling away, you start straying off, and we all do it. I've done it, you know. Even since I fully tried to give my life to Christ, I still stray off on my own every once in a while, and I bet you do too. And so in doing so, when you have those other people around you, sometimes they can say, hey, stupid, what are you doing? You know, what's going on here? Why are you acting like an idiot? And you can say, oh, thanks, I don't know what I was doing, but whatever it was, it sure wasn't smart, like what I'm about to do here. Alright, I made it, I'm alive. But yeah, I know, it gives you someone to call you out, and it gives you people to talk to. A hard thing I have in my life right now is that my church, I don't even know if they have small groups. I haven't been going there very long. Like I said, I miss it a lot. Probably been 10, 15 times the last year or so. I don't know, maybe not a year, maybe more than that. I go church in Kansas and other places. I'm always out of church, but I feel like I'm never at the church here in Minnesota because, for whatever my own reasons, but I'm in a church, right? But it gives you someone to lean on. Like when I struggle with some things, every once in a while, I kind of wish I had someone to talk to about it, you know? I'm out here preaching to you guys, motovlogging, whatever. I just talk about God, riding motorcycles, you know, from my own personal experiences. Someone's read the Bible and follows Jesus, everything else. But it's like, sometimes I would love to have someone I could just call and ask about that stuff. And alright, it's gone forever. I was gonna jump off and stop it. I'm gonna get hit by a car and die. The plastic bags. Alright, the lady was chasing them. I don't know if you saw them. But, you know, sometimes I wish I had those people to talk to. And sometimes, every once in a while, you know, I talk to your girlfriend about it. But sometimes you just need another guy to be like, dude, I've been cranking the hog too much. Yeah, I'd be brass and say it, crass or whatever. Sometimes that's true. It's hard to go to your girlfriend or whoever and say that stuff. You know, what? Like, what do you mean? You know, it's like, when you tell her, it's like, dude, just, if you have another guy you can just go be honest with about and talk to him about that kind of thing, it makes life a lot easier. And it's really nice to just have someone around. And that's a big benefit. You have people there in the church you can talk to. You have the pastor. You know, you have a community of people around you that it gives you options to go serve. You know, your church has lots of events probably where you can go help out. You can help the children. You can help old people. You can go volunteer and do things. And they have that. It makes it easier than trying to do it on your own. I don't know. There's a million different ways that it's good. And I think it's biblical in some point. You know, the disciples met like once a week or something. I don't know. I can't even pull out the legitimate stats on that because I'm a bad person. But, you know, what I'm saying is that you should just do it. See if it helps you. You know, find a good church. If you're going to church and you feel like you're not getting anything out of it at all, sometimes it's that way. But if you really feel like you're not, try a different church. You know, try a different denomination, whatever you have to do. So, but the one thing is don't become a person. Lee Strove or C.S. Lewis. I think C.S. Lewis in Mere Christianity or in Screw Tape Letters talks about this, where he says the devil wants people to never get settled in a single place, a single church, because then he knows, oh, they're not going to have that community around them or whatever else. It's like a tactic of the devil to get you to be impatient and never be able to stay in one place. You know, sometimes someone will annoy you there and you just stay, and whatever else. It's optional. You know, you don't have to go next Sunday, but plant your roots and keep them there and grow in it. And don't be afraid to cut it off too. You know, if your pastor starts becoming one of those, like, give us money and you'll be rich and prosperity gospels or something nuts, you know, don't be afraid to leave either and walk away and go somewhere new. You know, places change and evolve, and sometimes it's for the better or for the worse, and sometimes you need to stay there and help them become better. And if you can't do that, cut ties and go find somewhere else. You know, don't be afraid to leave. Now, the Bible talks a lot about going, and super important, and it's a good place. You learn and hear different perspectives and whatever else. I don't care how smart you think you are, how many times you read the Bible, there's always something to be learned or new or to know about, or you forgot and it brings it back to mind or whatever. And you know, I've fallen guilty of that. I was like, I read the whole Bible, I never learned all this stuff in church. It's like, sure, it's a waste of my time. And then I realized, oh no, it's not. It's you know, it takes a billion bricks to build a building, and if you start pulling one out at a time, eventually, you know, it's not going to be a building anymore. It'll collapse. And church and the community and everything else that's just one big brick in the foundation of your relationship with Christ, and you know, being that solid foundation and keeping it together and doing the best you can, whatever else. So don't forget about that, you know, don't be ignorant to it. I know it's awkward. I used to go by myself all the time, and when you're 20, I was like 20, I'm like 26 now, but I was like 23, 24, going to church by myself. I always used to joke, everyone probably thinks I'm like stubbing my toe away from like offing myself or something, because it's how that doesn't happen. It's weird for people to be out on their own, you know, going to church at a young person, but it's not a bad thing, you know. Change, be an example, be set apart, and bring your friends with you. Try to get someone to come with you, you know, make it your goal. If you're too afraid to go alone, find someone to go to church with you, and whatever, you know, I don't know, but Jesus loves you, he wants you there. Find a church that God's in, right? Some churches are really weird and they do weird stuff and whatever, but don't be afraid. Sometimes a church will have to say a hard thing, you know. The Bible doesn't always, you know, care about your feelings. It tells you the truth, not what makes you feel the best. And if you're getting called out, or you don't like what they say, but it's biblically accurate, don't go to a church that, you know, just makes you feel good or whatever. Go to a church that tells you the truth, leads you closer to God and the gospel. If you guys have any comments or questions, leave them down there and I'll either make a video about it or I will respond to you. Yeah, go to church on Sunday. That's just tomorrow, for me at least. Hope you guys have a good one and wish you the best. And look around, don't be afraid to try different places, but don't jump forever. Find a good place eventually and set your roots in it and keep them there. Alright, that'll be it for today. I'll see you guys.